subito dopo le elezioni politiche, le sue dichiarazioni sono state molto positive e hanno introdotto il Paese in una fase di coabitazione. Lei ha parlato adesso di un piano di coabitazione, noi abbiamo preso atto di alcune decisioni sconcertanti da parte del Governo nelle ultime settimane, negli ultimi mesi. Può tornare sull'argomento e dirci come vede lei questa coabitazione e come il Consiglio d'Europa può aiutare in questo senso la democrazia georgiana? Grazie.
Monsieur le Président.
Yes, I think what we did is, first of all, no Constitution didn't oblige the President to give over. First of all, I mean, I could have tried to form government for a short period of time, for several months. Of course, I didn't do that. But President could have kept for the transitional period the Ministry of Defense, Ministry of Justice, Ministry of Internal Affairs and Prosecutor's Office. We gave it away. And because Georgian people voted, and I think this government should have assumed the whole responsibility for it. And I still believe it was a right step, right things to do. I think the way we approached this affair was that the new government assumes the whole responsibility. President plays the arbitral role. Unfortunately, some of the events that unfolded later made this kind of neutral arbitral roles much more difficult to enforce because the very foundation of constitutional system came under attack, like constitutional majority, like the way it's being obtained now, under pressure and blackmailing and criminal case against MPs. This is not good, like attack on local governments, en masse, this is not good. Like attack on judiciary, not good. But otherwise, I mean, as I said, we have strong interest in keeping this new model of cooperation because it's new, and we should. I think there are people also in majority, parliamentary majority, that understand that Georgia should move to another model where people should have different levels of responsibility. There might be president from one party, parliamentary majority from another, a local government in different place from different parties, and that's a normal way of life. And that's a new tradition, and I think this is a unique chance, and for judiciary to become strong, and for media to play a key role. And I think that's where the role of president, as in terms of cohabitation, is important to just allow this process for the remaining 10 or 11 months of whenever new president's office will be activated to help this process. But as I said, I mean, this is an important experiment of transition. We don't have tradition of this, and I think we should create one. And I still don't lose my hope.
Merci, Monsieur le Président. Pour le groupe socialiste, Monsieur Iwinski, vous avez la parole.
Mr. President, given the recent processes going on, how do you see the chances for internal reconciliation between your movement and the Georgian Dream, as well as for external one in relations with Russian Federation? And finally, whether did the Georgian establishment as a whole did learn the lesson of Madame Rice offered in 2008, that the peace is always better than the war?
Well, we don't have to learn a lesson that peace is always better than the world. That's what I always believed in, especially if you represent a small country in a very difficult geopolitical environment, unless you are full or suicidal. I have a claim not to be any of that, and I don't think I represent a nation that is either full or suicidal en masse. With regard to, it's not about reconciliation of the parties. I think what we should keep in place is coherent political system that allows all different things to be voiced, independent judiciary, independent media, and checks and balances that allows things not to go out of control, even if people despise each other or lambast each other. That's not my, that's not my choice of things to do. We're not where I feel myself very comfortable with. But whatever happens, political system should be apt to, to keep it within framework, and that's what we try to create in Georgia. With regard to Russia, I think we've done a number of important steps to reach out to Russian society. Overall, normalization between Georgia and Russia should be based on a small idea, but which is, I think, principle for our region. Russia should give up imperial ambitions and allow all the countries to regain their territorial integrity and to develop as their independent nations on their own, join any alliances they want, be free in their choices, be successful on their own, not be impeded in being successful, and Russia should only gain from that. And I think that's in the interest of these nations, but also in the interest of Russians. I think we did our best, even at the height of tensions when they were bombing us. We never, ever we used hate speech against Russian society or Russia in general. I mean, we always wanted to protect our country, but we never wanted to, in any way, do such irreparable damage that could never be restored. That's what I always kept it in mind. I think most of Georgian political class kept it in mind. As I said, despite the fact that Russia has very heavy visa requirements on Georgia, we reintroduced unilateral visa-free trade. We never did any restrictions on Russian trade. They did full-blown embargo on us. We sold electricity to them even if they did energy embargo on us. As I said, we encouraged Russian tourists. We did our best to do cultural ties, and even we had a chance to block their access to WTO. We thought that keeping Russia within multilateral frameworks is good for a small country, and I still believe in all that. And I think eventually things will go the right way, but it takes lots of patience, especially for small nations. But meanwhile, we have to survive and be successful on our own. That's how I see it.
Merci, Monsieur le Président. Pour le groupe de l'Alliance des libéraux et des démocrates pour l'Europe, Madame Foussou, vous avez la parole.
Monsieur le Président Mikhail Saakashvili, je vous remercie pour votre discours très ample et très essentiel. Comme je suis représentante de la Moldavie, je comprends votre problème de votre pays, votre relation avec la Russie. Et maintenant, la question. Après les dernières élections, la majorité parlementaire a changé et votre parti est devenu minoritaire. Dans ce cas, dans ce chemin nouvel de cohabitation, est-ce que le vecteur européen et euro-atlantique est resté actuel et prioritaire pour la Géorgie? Et à quelle étape se trouve une négociation pour un accord éventuel d'association avec l'Union européenne? Je vous remercie.
Oui, Madame Foussou, d'abord, je voudrais vous remercier pour cette question. Il faut, comme j'ai dit dans mon discours, toutes les déclarations de ce nouvel gouvernement sont fondées sur le principe qu'il n'y a pas des autres alternatives pour la Géorgie que l'Europe et l'OTAN. Mais il y a aussi, c'était l'introduction à cette, pendant les premières semaines. Mais après, il y a quelques jours, comme j'ai dit, on a changé le ton assez radicalement. J'espère que c'est quelque chose qui a été fait par l'accident. Ça va aussi changer encore une fois. Pourquoi? Parce qu'il n'y a personne chez nous. Nous avons fait le référendum. Presque 70% des Géorgiens ont voté pour l'OTAN. À ce moment-là, le pourcentage est beaucoup plus élevé, presque 80%. Et le pourcentage contre est vraiment trop petit. Très petit, trop petit même. Donc, pour cette même raison, il n'y a pas d'autres groupes, importants qui peuvent être contre ça. Et pour la même raison, pour les raisons pragmatiques, si n'importe quel gouvernement, n'importe quel groupe politique qui a l'espoir de gouverner la Géorgie, si elle représente les intérêts du peuple ou de leurs électeurs, ne peut pas ignorer le fait que l'entièreté de la population est pour l'Europe et pour l'OTAN. C'est ça la vérité. Et c'est ça qui donne aussi à l'Assemblée, ainsi qu'au Parlement européen, à tous les groupes importants européens politiques, les instruments formidables de coopération avec la Géorgie, de l'assistance pour la démocratie géorgienne, parce que c'est dans mon main, parce que dans mon pays, cette sympathie et soutien et association totale qui est vraiment une réalité quotidienne pour tous les Géorgiens. C'est ça qui compte, pas seulement des déclarations. Les déclarations, pour moi, c'était un peu quelque chose qui vraiment m'énervait beaucoup, c'est vrai, j'ai dit ça, mais ça va être temporaire. Merci.
Merci beaucoup. Pour le groupe des démocrates européens, Monsieur Pouchkov, vous avez la parole.
Merci, Monsieur le Président. Mr. Saakashvili, after the last elections in Georgia, we keep hearing from inside Georgia and from international organizations like Human Rights Watch multiple informations about serious, even massive violations of human rights in Georgia during your presidency, the torture of prisoners, among others, behind the democratic facade. Do you recognize these accusations, and what do you think about your personal responsibility for those violations? Thank you.
Well, I'm very happy that our Russian neighbors have suddenly taken a very keen interest of human rights, democracy, and freedom of individuals. I really hope that you also practice it on a daily basis in your wonderful country, a great country. And of course, we would very much welcome Russia that is on a daily basis respects their individuals and, respects their rights. And, if once you do it, we would certainly maybe one day learn from you. However, if you go back to my country, I think we always listened very carefully to every criticism we got from any international group or organization. I believe that's something that we always welcomed. Sometimes we agree with it or disagree with it, but we always listen to it. I'm very proud of the fact that we come from the time of lawlessness. We come from the place which was one of the most criminalized in Europe, one of the most lawless in Europe. According to the European Union, Georgia has become the safest country in Europe, 5 times less crime rate, by the way, than in Russia, just as a small parallel. We have become, in terms of corruption, the least corrupt country in Europe. And according to Transparency International, I think the last figure was like, 80 places ahead of Russia. We have, in terms of doing business environment, Russia is 139, Georgia was 9th. I mean, these are international organizations. This is not me telling you what I believe it is, but these are benchmarks. In the small countries, for small countries, they matter. I guess you are a big country, for you they don't really matter. So, and that's, I think, one of the reasons why some people would have rejoiced it. And I know there are lots of Russians who were, congratulating us on that. Some people were getting nervous because of that. But, it's a matter of choices and priorities. But otherwise, as I said, we would be working further. We would share this experience with you. And thank you for asking this question.
Monsieur Cox, vous avez la parole.
Mr. President, let me start by thanking you for being the one, as far as I know, the one who started this spontaneous question and answer debate of the Assembly with heads of states and government. You started and they all followed, and we appreciate that very much. As you are not afraid of spontaneous questions and answers, my question to you would be, what would you consider your best political decision in the past 8 years of your presidency, and what would you consider the least best or the worst political decision in the past 8 years? Thank you.
Well, I think, first of all, thank you for telling me. I heard today at the dinner from you, at lunch from you, that I didn't know about it. I mean, I had that one of the proudest things I should write on my biography is that I introduced a new rule into this assembly. That after my last speech, somebody said at the bureau that after Saakashvili asked for spontaneous questions, since then nobody had to write the questions in before, because when I was member of the assembly, I had to write before the questions what I had to ask. So if I allowed this to save some ink here, that's a great honor for me, and that's something that, thank you for telling me that that's what happened. But I think one of the best decisions I took was the decision I took during elections in October, 1st of October, to immediately, without any delay after exit polls, within a few minutes to recognize the results. Usually, nobody did it in Georgian true history before, neither opposition nor the government. Even if the government usually won the elections. I mean, there was one before Rosa Revolution that didn't. And I didn't hesitate. And I have to tell you, I didn't consult anybody, not even my closest friends. And I think and I did it because I thought that that was the right thing to do, and that was, when I did it, I did it in a very upbeat and optimistic mood for the future of the country. I have to say, I wasn't optimistic about the government that was coming in. I was very pessimistic, but I was optimistic about the country and about the experience they would gain from that government about which I was pessimistic. That was my instinct. About the worst decisions, if I start mentioning them, it was a very long list, and I don't want to burden them with those ones. So maybe I'll think more about that.
Merci beaucoup, Monsieur le Président. Madame Gundes Bakir.
Mr. Saakashvili, you moved Georgia on a path towards democracy, economic liberalization, and Euro-Atlantic integration. But given Mr. Ivanishvili's close links to Russia, is it likely that Georgia will now follow a different path? Will Georgia move away from the Western Bloc or move away from the Euro-Atlantic integration? I'm asking this question with regard to the government, not with regard to the people of Georgia. And do you expect political instability or an autocratic government in the near future in Georgia? Thank you very much.
Well, as I said, we should keep in place democratic framework. That's what really matters. We should keep independent judiciary, which is under attack right now as we speak, because we have the government members like ministers, others who call, say, chairman of Supreme Court criminal on daily basis. And he's everything but criminal. And they just initiated, by the way, a Maoist law in the Georgian parliament that would replace courts by so-called jury, but the defendant would not have the right to choose whether to face jury or not. That was the proposal. I don't know whether it will be finally voted or not. And we've seen what these mobs look like, because they attack from time to time on daily basis our local government, and I know what they look like. And the same people that attack local governments with sticks, with other things in their hands, they will be given right to try political figures, and that's what they said, that political figures should be tried by them. They will be nominated by prosecutors, and the government and the defendant will not have right to choose between them and professional judge. The only case I know like that is Cultural Revolution in China in the 50s and 60s. That was one of the proposals we got. Now, if you create such proposals, then there is a problem, yes. But I think this is, hopefully it will not pass. Hopefully there will be people who understand that this will lead to absolute madness. Hopefully they will understand that calling Chief Justice, who has a totally untainted reputation, highly respected figure in Georgia, criminal every night, is an absolute madness and irresponsible. Hopefully menacing every single government official with arrest every night on television is, to say the least, unserious, or former government official. Hopefully telling your parliamentary opposition, you better shut up or we'll send you to prison on daily basis, in parliament, in front of cameras, is not a serious thing to have. And I think this will pass. This happened in other places as well. This happened in the 90s with regards to political orientation. I think there is no segment in Georgian population that wants change. Georgian people voted for better life, not for arrests and not for resisting NATO, Europe, West, I'm quoting this, and for turning our back to NATO and the European Union. No, they didn't vote for that. They didn't vote for what they against what they fundamentally vote in. They didn't vote for government to go against it. And there is no segment in Georgia. We are not divided in that way. So that's why I'm optimistic about our society. People want to live better in any place. We had economic growth of, for the first 4 years of our government, which was double-digit at average, which is good. Last 3 years, we had more than 6%, then 7%. Then we were supposed to have 8% last year. Well, it was a little bit less because then elections happened. We had high economic growth. But no matter how fast you grow, people want more. We know it. You can never catch up. As you are all politicians, you know how it's like surfing. And you are surfing political waves, and in the end, some wave will catch up with you and cover you. The main thing not to drown and one day to come back on the wave. But any surfer experiences this from time to time. We are political surfers from that point of view. That's normal. But anyway, that's something, but we should not change our direction in that surfing, that's for sure. Because direction of the wind, when you surf, I don't know whether you surf or not, never changes.
Monsieur Chegel, vous avez la parole.
Господин Саакашвили, спасибо вам за теплые слова в адрес России, однако, к сожалению, они часто расходятся с делом. При вашем правлении наши отношения с Грузией зашли в тупик, и мне непонятно, почему вы, говоря какие-то положительные вещи, при этом критикуете позицию Иванишвили, который пытается из этого тупика отношений между Россией и Грузией вывести. Спасибо.
У вас одна проблема, когда вы говорите, что такое отношение между Россией и Грузией. У вас в глазах одна карта Грузии, а у меня другая. И при всем моем уважении к вам нужны очки, чтобы видеть настоящую карту. А я могу видеть то, что есть на самом деле. Та карта Грузии, которую мы унаследовали и которая признана международным сообществом. И сколько вы бы ни бегали по всяким Тувалу мира, это не изменится. Вы можете там Тувалу и Науру получить признание, но от этого в этой ассамблее мира ничего не поменяется. И ни один, даже самый прорусский, да, пророссийский, даже скормленный, я не знаю, любыми там российскими там кругами деятель Грузии никогда не сможет дать вам то, чего у него нет. Никогда народ Грузии не пойдет за тем, чтобы уступить вам нашу территорию. Вот это очень просто. Поэтому все остальные вещи можно уладить. Но как только вы, Россия, избавитесь от этого, вообще других вопросов у нас быть не может. Мы же никогда не пытались создавать вам никаких проблем. Мы не при всем том, что... Вы же знаете, что есть целый ряд стран, которые бы даже по-русски бы сейчас вам не отвечали. Потому что настолько у них даже аллергия на русский язык. Я говорил, кстати, Путину, что, может быть, я последний грузинский лидер, который с ним может говорить на русском языке, и который может даже цитировать ему бесконечно там, Бродского, Есенина, Пушкина, Лермонтова, я у него уже всех классиков, даже современных. Ну, я хочу вам сказать, что я говорю по-русски намного лучше, чем теперешний премьер-министр. Хоть в этом я оказался прав, не говоря уже о знании поэзии. Так что я думаю, что надо нам всем избавляться от иллюзий, понимать, что, в чем суть вопроса. А суть вопроса в том, что России надо избавляться от имперских амбиций и территориальных претензий к соседям. И тогда все будет здорово. А что касается насчет людей, я встречался, ездил на границу неоднократно, Ларс, которую вы тоже закрыли односторонне, но потом мы через какое-то время, слава богу, что приоткрыли, мы никогда его не закрывали. И пожимал руки российским туристам, сотням из них. Ни в одном из них я не ощущал агрессии. Правда, один раз у меня хватило неосторожности, я это все показал один раз по телевизору, и этих 7 или 8 бедных туристов потом долго допрашивал в Владивостоке, нескольких из них даже посадили, по-моему, на некоторое время. После этого я ездил уже туда без камер. Я не устану налаживать всю свою политическую карьеру отношения с русским народом. Это мой сознательный внутренний мир. Так этого требует, потому что у меня инстинкт, что со всеми соседями Грузии для блага наших детей должны быть хорошие отношения. Четко. Но с соседями. А наши соседи, наши границы проходят по ПСО и по Рокскому туннелю. Вот единственный урок географии, который я хотел бы, чтобы из этого зала от меня получили как совет.
Madame Brasseur. Madame Brasseur.
Je voulais vous poser une question sur les divergences de vues entre la nouvelle majorité et vous en ce qui concerne les relations internationales, mais je crois que vous y avez amplement répondu. Donc, je voudrais savoir quelles sont les divergences essentielles sur les points de politique nationale de l'actuel gouvernement et vous, et que, d'après vous, quels sont les défis essentiels que la Géorgie doit affronter à court terme. Merci, Monsieur le Président.
Merci. Avec votre permission, Madame, je vais répondre en anglais parce qu'il y a eu des problèmes avec la traduction des français. I think when I was asked by Georgian people before elections, I was seeing clearly as I see it, and I was seeing it the same way that I thought that new government promised people to bring them big elements, essential elements of the past. And they were telling them that whatever happened in the last 8 years was bad, the reforms were bad, and what was before was good. I was telling them what was before was bad, and what was happening after was not ideal, but we were going in the right direction, and we should have moved on. That's the essential difference. We advised our people not to risk to go to the past because there was nothing nice left in the past. So we are right now reliving through this experiment of going through some kind of experience of reliving the past. And past has concrete names, faces, experiences, and experiences have to do everything with corruption, with mismanagement, with attitude towards minorities, for instance. This is very important. Attitude towards the idea of, say, local governments, the attitude towards idea of relations between different, as I said, ethnic and religious groups, the idea of Europeanness and what it means and what it means for Western culture and whether it's part of our psyche or not, and debating fundamental values about that. There are value-based differences. And they are not just about, what kind of social or small economic adjustments we should take. The other thing we also fundamentally believe is that I believe that, you cannot promise people something you cannot deliver in terms of you cannot promise people that they can do nothing and you can feed them. It hasn't happened anywhere. It will not happen in Georgia. It would be a big myth. And we will relive through the existence of this myth. I think what our people will understand through this experience is the following. First, that the idea that you can stay idle, not work, and somebody will feed you, just doesn't exist. It's some kind of old nostalgia from the past. Nobody ever managed to deliver it. Nobody will deliver it in Georgia, however many billions they might have in their own pockets. Even more billions they have, less they will deliver it to you. The myth that somebody has money and will share it with you, it's usually exactly the opposite. Second idea is that you can change your relations with your neighbors, especially with great imperial neighbors, by just trying to please them without adjusting a fundamental interest, without giving up fundamental interest. I think that's not how it works. I think you should develop, you should be successful on your own, and then they will reconsider their relations with you. And third thing we will learn, all of us, is that we should permanently renovate our institutions. We should permanently have new blood. We should permanently give way to new generations. This country should always open up to new ideas. And that we should never try to go to the past. That's how I see it. I think we should be open toward the future, and we should never try to revisit the past because, as I said, we have, especially in our case, there is, people when they are promised past, I'll tell you, and I'm not that young anymore. When we are promised our past, is that, when we're told it's not about the people who miss communism and Soviet Union. We miss our young years. Some of us will miss that we looked better, we were more energetic, we had more prospects ahead of us. But that's all right. But it should not come. But in our case, this was also a very bad political system. And that's what happens. It's a poisonous pill that was basically offered to our population. And we swallowed this pill. I hope we will survive it and we'll go on with our lives.
Merci, Monsieur le Président. Monsieur Xukla, je ne le vois pas. Madame Sigan, je ne la vois pas davantage. Madame Durieux, je la vois. Madame Durieux.
Je voudrais saluer notre ancien collègue du Conseil de l'Europe. Nous avons fait un large chemin ensemble. Je voudrais vous dire qu'effectivement, ici, les avis sont partagés. Et quelque part, je souhaiterais qu'au niveau de ce Conseil de l'Europe, on garde fondamentalement dans nos principes le respect de la souveraineté et de l'intégrité d'un État. Par conséquent, c'est un appel à une solution pacifique entre les deux pays.
Merci beaucoup. Merci.
Monsieur Erkel.
Thank you, Mr. President. First of all, I would like to thank you for mentioning our monitoring reports about the consequences of the war. But you still used the expression that there are still attempts to legitimate illegal occupation. My question is, can you further elaborate what it means exactly, because it is in our best interest to recognize those attempts if they exist. Thank you.
What the attempts mean to legitimize it? That's what I understood. Well, as I said, you know, they're going around. Their last ally in legitimizing it, Hugo Chavez, is not in good health. That were their last hope in the Americas, our Russian neighbors. Then they have bribed a couple of small island nations in Oceania, like Nauru and Tuvalu. I tell you how they do it. Prime Minister of Tuvalu was met by Foreign Minister Lavrov in New York for 3 hours. Then they summoned a plane for him to New York. He was flown into Sochi, brought into Abkhazia, signed an agreement on recognition of Abkhazia, came back. I would just also guess what else it involved as a transaction, the whole thing. And then great nation of Russia, after long discussions with the island nation of Tuvalu, made big diplomatic breakthrough. Finally, somebody else recognized their occupation of Abkhazia. Congratulations, Russian friends. It's so great of you. But I think it's really a shame, frankly, for really in 21st century, for Russian Federation to be doing this kind of cheap diplomatic tricks against their nation's friend that should be their natural friend and ally, provided you just respect our right to exist and develop and be normal. That's the point. Instead of trying out to reach us to us, you are trying to reach out to Tuvalu. I have nothing against Tuvalu, by the way. I mean, I have lots of friends in Oceania. As a result of Russian policy, I also try to take lots of interest in that region. But is that the way out for our neighbor relations? Is that the way how you are trying to pursue your foreign policy goals? And I think that's exactly the thing that we're trying to change. I think eventually, once Georgia develops further, and I have to say, I mean, Dmitry Medvedev, twice during 1 week, last year, said once, he said, yeah, we have to imitate Georgia. First he said, yeah, I absolutely hate Saakashvili, but we have to acknowledge he did some amazing reforms, we have to learn from them. And second time he said, I would like to learn from them, but, you know, we are too big, they are too small, and, you know, it's really impossible for Russia, we cannot really do it. Great to say. 4 years ago, they said that Georgia should disappear, that I was a political corpse. They menaced me with physical destruction. I guess this is still out, this threat. And still they would say, 4 years later, but by the way, we should also learn from this guy whom we are going to hang very soon, that we should learn from him how to run our own country. And that's really is something very remarkable. And that really shows that there is also chance for realism and also in Russian policy. And I welcome it. I welcome it, and I hope that it will grow, and it will, no matter who will be in government in Georgia, and by the way, who will be president, or by the way, I mean, who will be in government in Russia, and who will be president of Russia in the future, our peoples will find their common language based on their interests and not talk through different island nations that are far away. And I think they should not be the decisive, with all due respect, decisive players in our own bilateral relations.
Merci, Monsieur le Président. Une dernière question, Monsieur Guilecci. Je ne le vois pas. Monsieur Jensen. Je ne le vois pas non plus. Monsieur Japaridj.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President Saakashvili, do you seriously think that the current Georgian government is surrendering to Russia or saying no to our European aspirations? And if so, why, and what are the facts on the ground? Thank you.
I don't seriously think. I think what I don't even think. I hear what I hear, and then when I hear it, and then I start to think. And the point here is that what I heard, and I don't have to repeat it at length, but what I heard is that we managed to resist the pressure from Europe and America. I've not heard such a quotation since any Georgian leader since maybe 1991. I've heard that Secretary General of NATO came to, and correct me if I'm misquoting any of you, came closest to intervention of domestic affairs of Georgia. For the first time I hear ever in Georgian history that there is something like called domestic affairs of Georgia where Secretary General of NATO cannot meddle. I don't accept this. If you want to be part of NATO, I know there are people with different views of NATO, but I have my own strong views. If you want to go there, you accept friendly criticism, at least listen to it, and at least don't openly object to it. This has its price, and it clearly resonates with sovereign democracy notion of another country. And what I heard just a few days ago, that we have a great example when you should have the same distance with Russia and NATO. Same kind of relations. I fully refuse to accept it. This has concrete foreign policy price. And I also heard that Georgia should stop as a problem in relations between the West and Russia. I fully agree with that, by the way. But the way you put it is that we should stop being a problem without problems being actually solved. And if we stop to be a problem without problems being actually solved, which it might also mean that Georgia might stop to exist as such, not as a problem to exist, but as a country to exist. And by the way, this happened in our history in the past. So there are certain things that makes us think that, things are moving not in the right way. And I think I'm not the only one, and I hope I'm wrong. I really hope I am. But there are other people who might think the same way as I'm thinking.
Merci beaucoup, Monsieur le Président. Mes chers collègues, nous avons terminé donc avec l'intervention du Président Saakashvili et vos questions. Je vous remercie d'avoir posé ces questions. Et vous, Monsieur le Président, bien sûr, je vous remercie très chaleureusement pour cette intervention que vous avez faite devant notre Assemblée parlementaire et pour la spontanéité des réponses que vous avez faites. Merci beaucoup.
Merci, Monsieur le Président. Merci à vous.
Merci.